Started up. I will introduce myself. As always, I'm Jim Gustafson, Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Wisconsin Medical School, giving my 31st of 36 lectures. Today's lecture is called The Unknown Unknowns, as in suicide, as in Anna Karenina. Richard Hugo poses our problem of unknown unknowns in terms of writing a poem. And he says, the relations of the words to the subject must weaken, and the relations of the words to the writer, you, must take on strength. Now here's a single simple line. That silo filled with chorus girls and grain. Now let's look at the whiteboard at the left-hand side. There's that silo filled with grain on the right. Hugo says newspaper writing is typical of what's on the right-hand side there, of using words to denote objects. He took it as the opposite of writing good poems. He said, in the former, words and phrases merely denote objects and have none of the subject who composed them. That's the right-hand side. The left-hand side has something unexpected in it. In the latter, poems instead of newspaper articles, the opposite is true. The objects and their names are there, but the writer has loosened his coupling with them. He has given himself some free run to use words as he pleases, and not as he must in a newspaper article, or say an epic, for example, which is a form of newspaper reporting. We'll get to that in the morbidity and mortality later. Something surprising and fresh and unknown happens. That silo filled with chorus girls and grain. This is a previously unknown unknown about silos. I bet you didn't know that such things existed. So we've gotten into the same general situation. Come back here to Ed, to me. We've gotten into the general situation with the same structure as newspaper articles. Every field of knowledge is like ours. It's become a set of facts purported to be objective. Every person becomes a clerk of facts, like a newspaper reporter. What varies is the materials: selling shoes, articles of sociology. Each specialty has its own collection. Only what has changed from 1979, when Hugo wrote this essay, is that each specialty now has 10 or 100, 1,000 or 100,000 more facts. That is why every clerk is drowning in details. You can call him a medical student, you can call him a professor of law, you can call him a manager of the Yellow Pages. Of course, psychiatry has a special vocabulary like every other field. You become a member of it by using its words and phrases. Psychology, its partner, uses almost the same set of words and phrases. Everything has a program to fix it. For example, depression has antidepressants, and violence has alternatives to aggression, flight instead of fight. Drinking excessive alcohol has 12-step programs that are lessons in how not to drink. Interestingly, as can be observed in any case conference, in any department of psychiatry or psychology, few of the clinicians need to know anything about the context in which a given disturbance arose: depression, violence, excessive alcohol. They hardly ask when a patient was all right and when he gradually or suddenly was not. They hardly ask where the patient was not disturbed and where he became disturbed. This is because, and this is a crucial point, you only need the word denoting a fact, such as depression, and you have at once a program to fix it: anti-depression. Of course I exaggerate. Now let's just take any case in point, such as a teenager who has become violent, depressed, and drinking too much. Now, what is so dangerous about this surface approach? Can be illustrated by this or any case. The participants will have words and phrases for its objects and programs to fix each object. They will be nowhere near the disturbance the patient is undergoing. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. For example, suppose the example is a teenager. Suppose the example is a teenager who has become violent and depressed and drinks too much. Since there is a program for violence, depression, and excessive drinking, the participants will demonstrate their knowledge of programs for anti-violence, anti-depression, anti-drinking. Some are even clever enough to know the research proving this correlation. Without a serious history, we do not have any feel for what this girl used to have that she lost. As Winnicott would say, we do not know her lifeline. That is, we do not know what she believed, what lives she thought probable and possible for herself. Therefore, all the discussion in the world about how to keep her from killing herself is mere patchwork to contain her without knowing what used to make her life worth living. How can you do it without knowing that? And whether it is possible for her to regain it or not, revise it or not. Now, as I argued in my last lecture, there is no substitute for getting a history from childhood of what this child emerged from his or her own family with faith in. She or he admired someone or something and trusted that being like this would bring a good life. It's a covenant in the biblical sense. Certain things were not supposed to happen. But perhaps she was in love with being a daring young woman and got raped for taking dangerous chances. Now her faith or lifeline has collapsed, and she believes in nothing, and her horizon is totally dark. If she cannot get, someone cannot get near her at this moment, she could murder herself. Anna Karenina was another in love with being a daring woman and got herself involved in adultery with Vronsky. And he broke the back of a horse he was riding, just to be a little metaphorical, named Frou Frou. Great name for the horse. And from then on, Anna was in a plot with ever more complexity, lost her entire world, her family, her whole connection with society, and ended up throwing herself to be run over on the very railroad tracks in which her promising story began. The other thing that is dangerous in this surface approach is that many of these practitioners, so bound to their objective surface of facts, actually talk like this in the most impersonal, technical way. Mechanical psychiatrists often meet seemingly mechanical patients who ask for no more than a prescription and a program. Sheer lack of presence is brought to the encounter from both sides, and everything decisive to life and death is an unknown to both parties. Finally, using words loosened from this subjective surface is not just necessary to poets. It is the only way to get out of the conscious surface that is entirely known. If our whole practice is linking knowns, namely diagnoses, to knowns which are programs, that finishes the surface. It's the only way to get out of the conscious surface that is entirely known in advance of seeing the patient. I hear at the Marshfield Clinic from a friend of mine, they're not even going to see the patients anymore up there. They're just going to consult other departments, let them actually get near the patients. Only by knowing how to descend into the unconscious will true dangers be known. A first line of sight, but also ability to see afresh a second line of sight. All right, now, letting words emerge with only loose relationships to their objects is part of it, and letting images emerge is also, in the dark sea of night, that seem to make no sense at all, is part of the poetic method, but is also part of the method necessary to take in the whole situation for all of us. Now, I'll tell you, yesterday when I took a nap in that great snowstorm, I had a dream. I went back to my dream from the night before, only I saw it completely differently as I was about to compose this lecture. So let's go to the whiteboard, and you can look at this diagram on the right. You're looking at my mouth there. You see the tip of my tongue? And you see those two incisors up there in the front? So my dream the night before was that I mean, I couldn't believe this dream, Ryan. I thought, oh my God, I've never had a dream like this. That means I'm seeing things really differently. Basically, the original dream was I'm looking at the back of my two front incisors from the back of my mouth, approximately from my uvula, for you looking forward. And they each one had painted like that, a little, the edge of each one. So the shape was apparent of my two incisors. And then and then a little bit later, they appeared huge, like the same two incisors, but they were like the size of huge paintings. Okay, and each one, and they were connected by a silver wire. The big ones, and then the little ones that I had anticipated in my mouth. I bet you've never had a dream from your own mouth. Now, okay, now we're going to finish up, and you'll get your 10 minutes. We'll be done in 2 minutes. This is something, huh? Wait till you hear what happened in the afternoon during the thunderstorm, the thunder snow. I knew at once that this pair of teeth referred to a dream of a doctor described in 1953 by Edith Jacobson. I've written about it a lot, as absolutely typical of manic dynamics, and this is no accident. We're talking about manic dynamics. The doctor was elated by the dream of this special connection to his mother by a delicate silver wire between two identical teeth. Yet he was terrified that the wire would be cut and his inflation from this lifeline myth of these two grand teeth would be totally lost. You can see how that would be very stable inflation and deflation. There would be huge inflation and there would be a sudden deflation. Now, when I re-dreamt this dream I was astonished by my capacity to approach these painted teeth with my tongue, like that. I thought, isn't that interesting? And suddenly, then the pair would appear as these two vast canvases. In other words, I was being the capacity to see what I needed to see on the tip of my tongue, so to speak. Now we can come back from there if you're not back from there. Now I take the one paragraph and we're finished. I take all this to mean the following. It meant much more than manic dynamics, that's for damn sure. It meant that my field is built by lifelines that are pledged to take a first known or tooth or incisor and link, say depression, and link it to a second known, an antidepressive drug or program. So all I have to do to remember my whole field is go like this. That's funny, isn't it? And then what was a lightly painted connection has become a strongly painted establishment. Its unknowns are just in the details. What kind of, there are unknowns in our field, like which antidepressant we're going to use, or which program we're going to use. So we have these little unknowns. This field will not know its unknown unknowns, such as that life itself depends on having a faith in something, when it called a lifeline. And when her faith collapses, she can throw herself on a railroad track to be run over. These are unknown unknowns to our field. Thus, with the tip of our tongue, of course, we can remember the limitations that we're up against in this field. Just go like that, and you'll see the whole thing. Neon. Our field is comfortable going from known to known. So it's the lifeline of our field. Thus, we do not know how to get close to the darkest moments of a person's life, which is an unknown. We're dealing in unknowns every time we see somebody. We don't know your darkest moment. You look how you look, but we don't know unless we know how to get past the pair of knowns that are our left eye and our right eye. And if we can get to the darkest moment, then we can also watch and listen for what light is available to arise in a terrible darkness. Thank you.